On the agenda is the minutes.
Move approval. Second.
Any discussion? Okay, I call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion for the minutes is passed. So the next item on the agenda is the concept review for Red Tail Acres, Bill Rangwitz, St. Somewhere Else Incorporated, 4821 County Highway Q. So yesterday we had this discussion at the Middleton Westport Commission. So, and do you want to talk about it?
Well, the recommendation is for referral to different committees, and that would go to the Public Works Committee, Water Resources Management Commission, and the Park Recreation and Forestry Commission. Would have been tonight referred to the Middleton Westport Planning Committee, but it just turned out that they could meet before that. There's already been one neighborhood meeting. We're just encouraging the proposed developer to keep meeting with the neighbors to talk about the issues. The biggest issue that we heard about is stormwater management, and the project would be required to meet the standards. One of the issues that was brought up last night, the alderperson, what he's hearing in the neighborhood was the closeness of the two proposed condo units to an existing home on Red Tail Pass, and then also just the number of units abutting. But the developer did point out that there were 9 homes abutting, or I forget how many it was, 8 homes abutting 6. But that was an issue that's a concern. The staff comments identify 2 policy issues: the density, which is pretty low density, and that's what we had identified through the years in planning for that site. Also traffic circulation, and then again stormwater management is an issue. This parcel would require annexation if it's to be developed in the city, so that's another thing that would have to happen.
I also had the opportunity to go and look at the stormwater issues and talk to some of the folks living there. And I agree what Eileen has said. The biggest issue is the stormwater, and then the traffic and the privacy of the neighbors. And the houses are 25 feet distance, and the condos there's only 15 feet. And this is in the Wanakee School District, and some of the neighbors were concerned that there will be Middleton school buses coming there, and then there will be Wanakee school buses coming there. So I think it seemed like absurd, but that's how it is right now, and we will see that if it's possible. I guess it's up to the school districts to come together and look at this. Why would they want to waste all the gas and stuff to do this thing which they will be doing? So, but in any case, we will bring it to the attention of I personally would bring it to the attention of the school district, the Middleton Cross Plain, and see where it goes. So that's where we are. So somebody wants to make a motion, or somebody want to ask questions, or where do we want to go now?
I'm just trying to understand. It's on our agenda as a concept review. Are we going to kind of go through the full, because we kind of went through it all last night. I don't want to rehash everything I said there, but at least summarize some of those comments for the other Plan Commission members.
That's a good idea.
And are the developers doing a presentation? Are we doing a full concept review, or is this just referring and then we do a concept review later?
I think it's a good idea to have a concept review. It's up to the Plan Commission and then the referral.
Well, not everybody was there at the Westport
Right.
Commission. There were 2 of you, and there are 4 other
Right.
Plan Commission members, and I think it will be appropriate that the developer shows the whole thing. So
We made some changes that I think you like.
okay, so should we go through that then? Yes.
And I think there are neighbors who were not here last night, so the presentation.
Yes. Well, it's good that they made changes. That's
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that I talked to the developer beforehand about is I had the impression that the setbacks were going to meet the R1 for the R1 one,
Okay,
but they
thank you.
didn't have those. And so I think that's one of the things we're talking about is reducing the size of the building envelope, which will help with stormwater. Because a normal R1 setback is a 30-foot rear and a 24-foot front, we talked about moving it forward, which to give more in the back, but they only had
They already did this.
55 feet, I think, to start with, and they just,
So, just as a clarifying, because I was asking some questions yesterday while they're getting set up, I did go on Dane County mapping software in GIS to look at certain things, and the lot in North Lake that you see on your map here is lot 45, where there's currently a house and the street dead ends. I looked, and on that side of the street, there are, at least according to the mapping software, 10-foot side yard setbacks. So so one of the things I did is I redrew their site plan to see if we could make it kind of fit more of the neighborhood concern. But if you keep that kind of North Lake feel of the 10-foot side yard setback to the property line, then the current two condos are like that. The other thing we looked at is I was able to get the assessment acres. It's 6.35 acres. And so they're proposing 16 houses, which is 2.3 units per gross acre. Because those were questions we had.
And that looks okay. 2.2.
Well, the Middleton Westport Joint Plan for the area recommends low-density residential 2 to 4 units per acre.
so that's,
So it's on the low end of the recommended range.
It fits in there, so, okay. Okay, you guys are up.
Okay, all right. So we had a few changes. We met with the joint committee yesterday and came up with a few ideas and changes. So what we handed out isn't 100% reflected here.
Sorry, can you use the microphone?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Are there people in the audience who are here for this? No.
Hello?
It comes out.
Yeah, it's on.
It's not so much amplified for us to hear, it's so that the recording is made.
Okay. What I was starting to say is after meeting with the joint committee yesterday of both Westport and
Would you kind to identify yourself, if you don't mind?
Yes, I'm Chris Cook Holmes, working with Bill Ranget.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Bill Ranget. Okay. So we had some recommendations last night about possibly pulling the lots forward, reducing footprints, creating more area for stormwater management. One of the big concerns for stormwater management was along the back of the lots between lot 46 through 49 and then the lots 8 through 15 that we have. One of the things we looked at to make this work a little better is to pull the homes forward, reduce the footprint size. We really don't need a very large footprint for what we're proposing to build, which would create much larger backyards than helping with pervious surface for stormwater runoff to infiltrate in through grassy lawns. It would also create a little more privacy. Another thing we did is where the condos butt up to lot 45. We actually moved that quite a bit to the south to create a bigger buffer there as well. And
How much would that be? How much that buffer would be?
Shows a 20-yard here.
Oh, okay, 20 yards, okay. Oh, so that's pretty good.
20-yard to the property line, and there's another 10 yards to 20 feet.
Well, yeah, 20 feet.
Yeah, that's
We went with 20
Side
feet.
20
yard,
yards
20
would be-
feet. 20 feet, and then there's another 10 feet to the house on the other, on lot 45.
Yes. And the buildable footprints that are shown there would be 2,400 square foot footprints, of which we probably won't use all that. That would include a garage, a deck, maybe a screen porch. And we were looking at some different configurations that would help with privacy for lot 45. Kurt did mention he has a potential plan that we can look at to kind of maintain a certain flow, that we might put a single family lot there to kind of soften the blow to lot 45. We could maybe talk to the owners of lot 45 and just show them what we're doing. And I think what we're going to do is very unobtrusive. These are going to be probably units that are occupied only half the year. That's what we've seen in the single-family condos, so there shouldn't be a lot of traffic or
I
activity.
think it's a good idea to talk to the neighbor. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, we definitely will. Definitely will. But yeah, that was, I guess, if you look at the maps that I sent out to everybody, the pink line is showing sort of how we were moving forward on the lots. And Bill and I were just discussing with the typical size homes that we are doing, that we can probably reduce, we won't need those setbacks that big for what we're doing.
We actually have about 35 to 38 feet of setback in the back, and the front would be at 20 feet. And then the building envelope would drop down to 2,600 square feet, where it's shown on the map currently is much larger than that.
What I like about that is I think it does give more room, as we heard so last night, for stormwater management. It also mirrors what an R1 would do.
It would have been a 30-foot, so it's even greater than that.
It-
And the 20-foot setback, I think, was an excellent idea that you mentioned last night at the meeting. And the reduced footprint, I think, is more in keeping with what an R1 would be for that area. So there's a lot of positives about it, and I appreciate you thinking about.
A couple other thoughts too with that. Having the homes pulled forward will increase sunlight for the neighbors. There are some backyard neighbors concerned for sunlight. And then we're looking at primarily focusing on arts and crafts style homes, which are 612 to 412 pitch roofs, which are lower. These style of homes that we've been building do incorporate quite a bit of living space in the roof that create a little bit more of a bungalow effect, where instead of having a first floor wall, second floor wall, then a roof, that second floor living space is incorporated into that roof line, which keeps it a little bit lower as well too. If that would help any of the neighbors with concerns on, is it a big monstrous house, is it going to block sun? So we're trying to keep them lower, a little bit more in the arts and crafts variety, and I think that would just make a cohesive portion of the neighborhood.
Well, I'm pleased that you guys are good, accommodative, and from yesterday to today, you made those really positive changes. So that's pretty impressive. So that's a very good start.
We want to make it happen and make everyone happy doing it too.
Yeah, well, looks like it. We have to keep Mark, you want to say anything?
Again, Mark Sullivan here. The Alderman District. The concern that the neighbors have, and I just wanted to elaborate on the density. As we're looking here, what this is really doing is, in terms of densities, he's putting 6 houses on 3 abutting North Lake property lots. So just imagine you've been in this house for 20 years now, and now the proposal is to put 2 houses within the confines of your property width. And that exists for the first 3 houses on this side of North Lake. And that's the concern, is that density in people's backyards is too much. So it's a bit disingenuous to say that you're only putting 9 houses on 6 lots or whatever the number was. The reality is you're putting 6 houses on abutting 3 lots. And that's really the crux of the density issue. Thank you.
You guys want to?
Mark, do you get a sense of how many would be acceptable on those 3 lots?
Pick a number.
If
I'm
it was like
thinking
4 or 5 staggered, with closer to the street and screenings.
I'm thinking that if you put 3 houses on 2 lots, right? 3 houses, 3 new houses
On every 2 lots.
two of the abutting lots, that might be more acceptable. Right? We're talking about, I think it's 1/7 of an acre. These lots that are comparable to close to anywhere from 1/4 to 1/3 of an acre, and that just doesn't seem to be too conforming. Right? You're trying to at least keep some similarities between the 2 neighborhoods, right? The reality is that when people look at this, they're going to think that this is part of North Lake. Whether that's right or wrong, that's what's going to happen, because the only access point is through North Lake, right? And it really is different than North Lake. So to the extent that, I get that the whole idea is to build as dense as possible, but to have this much density in someone's backyard really isn't fair.
Thank you, Mark.
And And just to reiterate, what we learned last night is there's no possible way to cut a road off of Q. Based on the county right of way, it's not happening. So the only access would be through Red Tail.
Yeah, and I guess that's something that I, in further study, kind of have a question about,
Yeah.
is what is the story with that right-of-way easement at the south end of the condo development? Because when I look on the certified survey plat, it says 66-foot reserved for future road dedication. What's that about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if the owners of the property in the past had known. I think that, it could have been on there at some point.
We were told there would be no road ever given allowed road in there. That was from
Cam Dunbar?
Yeah, Dumpy, yeah.
Dumpy.
Yeah.
At the
She said
county.
there's no way that you can put a road in there.
So, well, I guess what I'm thinking, if there's no way there's ever going to be a road in there, why do we have an easement there?
Right.
And if that's really the case, maybe we should vacate that easement,
Yeah.
and maybe that gives us a little bit more room to move the condos south.
Yeah, go ahead.
I own the lot 2, and all the lots around my
You
lot.
want to come over here?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm the owner of lot 2, and all the homes around my lot goes through my property with an easement, basically. I can show right here.
Okay. So,
Basically, when I purchased this home, I looked at this certified survey map, and then I saw that road there, and then I thought one day they're going to build something there, an easement or road on north of my property, 66 feet allocated, so that the easement on my property will go away. It's a safety issue for my kids, for example, as there's a business down there, and some people drive down there 40 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour, and then my kids get out of the garage and they're like in the middle of a high-speed traffic. And also when we get out of our garage, it goes right through next to our home, this easement. When I get out of my garage, I did this many times. You get head-to-head, you slam on the brakes not to hit the other cars because the traffic, oncoming traffic doesn't assume there is a garage or home there. This is not fair, really, if you were to cancel this entirely here.
okay, thank you.
So I just want to understand
Yeah.
what that easement's doing there, and if it would become available, it might be something to help this project along.
Right.
So who will sort it out?
Yeah, I think it
Who
was.
owns it? Do we know? The
Yeah,
easement?
well,
The person that said there would never be a road there?
Cam Duffy, one of the county engineers.
Okay.
See, I think it predated the CSM before, and because it's an existing easement, they had to place it on the CSM. And it is in conflict with the county's requirement that there be access restriction and additional right-of-way platted, and no access shown on the CSM. But we can go back to the county and say, what's the deal?
Well,
They,
We have
that's
not
what
done
the restrictions they put on that you just mentioned were put on subsequent?
Right, when the CSM was done, I think this was just recognizing an existing right-of-way easement, but the county required that there be no access there other than the existing easement that serves as a driveway for 3 homes, I think, and also for the commercial business.
Eileen?
Yep, that's what I'm talking about.
but remember, it's
Oh, I see the
still in
arrows, too.
Westport. It
Yeah.
isn't in Middleton. So I
Right.
think,
Right.
whatever we do, it would have to be, it has to go through Westport. So you can't really, Middleton can't do it. So,
Looking closer at the plat, it looks like the arrows are pointing to Lot 2 as the owner of that 66-foot easement.
That's correct. So this easement right in here, this feeds to a commercial location, which is the greenhouse. This lot, and then there's also a house here that's part of it, that all feed down into this easement. So it is kind of interesting in that there's a lot of traffic there. As the one gentleman said, I have seen cars fly down through here
But it's
fairly quick.
it's a private drive,
It's a private drive.
and
Yeah.
and a shared driveway for those 3 houses.
Yeah, and then I don't know if a house could
And the
ever go
commercial.
down here as well, that might share in that easement as well. So as far as, you abandon this easement, and then does everyone for here have to come through there, or, or how, just curious as to what the thought would be on that.
I thought from what the neighbor said that the easement was actually on Lot 2, but that doesn't
No.
show it there. It looks like it's almost like a separate easement.
It's an easement across Lot 1 that lots 2 and 3 and that other home use for their driveway and the greenhouse uses for their commercial. So there is kind of road there already, but it's not a public street.
Not a public street.
It's a gravel road currently.
So
So
that means that
basically a
the county,
driveway.
that means that the county already allows that as an access point.
Right.
So that could eventually connect up to Red Tail.
Well, that's what I'm looking at too, from a circulation and fire.
Yeah, that you want-
Because having that deep cul-de-sac like that, I think it's beyond, a little longer than what the code allows already.
One thought too I wanted to
200
mention.
feet, right, yeah.
So then you are saying that it will connect to Q then?
But,
We can ask the county.
I mean, Q already has its own traffic issues. I mean, we heard last night that there's a possibility the county might want to abdicate Q and turn it to the city. And then we could put a streetlight in or reduce the speed, have our police target Wanakee visitors, try to slow down traffic on Q, given that Bishop's Bay is across the street.
Just a thought too that I had, if it would help in people's consideration of the access to Q, is if we had a one-way street possibly from a certain point coming out, that if a fire truck did need to come through, it could come through and then go straight through. Traffic from North Lake could exit there, but maybe it's not an entry point. I don't know if there's
And that might
more.
work.
Yeah.
Been done.
It's been done.
It's going to be referred to the Public Works Committee, so we could ask them to work through these issues with the county.
Because the police and fire will want some way to access those units without having to go through Red Tail, because if there's an accident or a fire on Red Tail, you always need to have 2 points to get to a parcel.
We were talking with Mark about having a access point coming through that easement onto the, for emergency.
Onto the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Off of Q, but not have it a public access at all. Just for emergency.
Yeah, they've done it.
And that's done, yeah, the city has done that.
I'm looking at the staff comments and saying there that this is the number of the not the units on the right, but the other ones, conform to the zoning.
They conform to the size for R1. They're at least 60 feet wide and they're 120 feet deep, and that's the minimum R1 zoning.
Okay.
Yeah, minimum standard.
I think the other thing we don't want to lose sight of here is, while the density may be a little on the higher side, and I know that these aren't quote-unquote affordable housing, more affordable, much of the housing here in Middleton. So I mean, it's helping us get towards affordability. Not affordable, but affordability, if you see what I'm saying. And in order to get that, and for these gentlemen to make a reasonable return on their investment, they're going to have to be the size that they are.
I mean, if you look at the site near where it's located, I mean, it's not going to be 3 units of estate lots. If it stayed in the town, it might be that. It's not going to be 40 units. We've already rejected that. So it's going to be somewhere between like 12 and 18. I mean, that's about what fits in there. So in some ways, the issue is also then mitigating the impact on the neighbors.
Yeah. One of the thoughts too, just when I've been thinking a lot about affordable housing and, what is the definition of affordable housing, and it relates to incomes. Well, I think what we're proposing here are move-up houses, and if it's hard to go from affordable right all the way up into, unaffordable, or, this is a nice, I think what our goal here is stepping stone size homes that I think will be pretty easy to sell.
Or downsizing for seniors.
Yeah, that's with the condos.
Can I make a comment about, I listened to what Mark said about it not being the same, basically. as North Lake is. This is something that's different, and therefore, it's not fair because it's different. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but that's kind of what I heard from what he said. My question is, if these houses are well done, the fact that there are more of them, and if the separation is provided as you're proposing and so forth, I have a hard time thinking that's necessarily bad because it isn't the same as what was already there.
A good example would be on the west side of Madison, and I know we're not in Madison, but there's a neighborhood we did a lot of work in called Pine Hill Farms where the lots are 50 foot wide. Wildly successful. That butts right up to Hawks Landing and $1 Million Homes. And a Viridian neighborhood is, I mean, you go on the same road, you just go right through. You go from $1 Million Homes through a Viridian neighborhood, then into Pine Hill Farm, which are, it's a sort of an anomaly, but it was wildly successful. A lot of people liked it, and
You know, I look at some of our other neighborhoods in Middleton where building has occurred in developed areas. I think if North Lake is unique in about anything, it's because it was built on the edge of town and there really was a much more rural setting around it when it was originally built. But you can look I think of Middleton Hills, for example, which went in as a very different kind of development next to other sorts of things, and we have other examples like that around Middleton too. So
I did a little research, because you said your price point here would be about 400?
450 is kind of
450.
where we're looking.
So the lot 45, 46, 47, 48, I looked up the assessment, those are all about 420 to 440 right now. So it's about the same price point. I mean, it's going to be a higher price because it's new construction.
yeah.
And lot prices, to get a lot that size like lot 47 over in Bishop's Bay, that's well over 200,000,
Right.
and
Just
people
for a
are
lot.
buying them.
Yeah.
You know, anywhere, that's a lot of land by today's standards, and a lot of what Dane County, I think, has tried to do is reduce that to try to get more density so we don't have urban sprawl. That was one of the things they were looking at for quite a long time. I'm not sure the status of it now, but that's one of the looks.
So it is in the urban service area boundary,
It
right?
is in the urban service.
Where CARPC recommends, I think, 4 to 8 net units per acre in urban service area boundaries.
Wow. So that's actually a lot more. Yes, Dave, you had something to say?
Are all of the units identical?
No.
No.
Single family.
I'm sorry. No, sorry. All of the 8 through 16. Are they is your plan to make them the same kind of unit?
No.
We want to have some variation.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously, like maybe craftsman style, prairie, bungalow. Try to maintain a particular theme of home through the neighborhood, but not just the same exact home.
Same with the condominiums. They're not the same 7 times. There'll be 7 different, most likely 7 different styles, 7 different.
I ask that because I think if you're looking at them from the existing homes, seeing some variety in it
Well, there'll be
will help.
definite. I like using lots of color, and I like to make them attractive, and that's one of our goals here is to mix it up. The idea is to keep the lower roof line for the backyard neighbors in sunlight. It just keeps them a little shorter, and it does give them a better look. Bigger overhangs, gable bracketry. We have some pictures I could show you. I don't know if you
In the back.
You provided the.
those are some ideas. Those are some ideas of what we're proposing to do.
So those pictures are for the homes, not for the condos, right?
Excuse me?
These pictures are for the homes, not for the condos.
There's a combination.
Oh, okay.
Some homes, some condos.
Okay.
A couple of them are references, probably homes we maybe wouldn't build. There's a light blue one in the picture there, but it shows how that's on a 40-foot by 40-foot footprint,
Mhm.
and it's a 2,200 square foot house.
Oh,
But it reduces the footprint, which
Example of one of the condos in here? Is that?
I think it's the one with the side
that
entrance
first one?
garage.
Yeah, this right here, I bet.
On a
yeah.
shared driveway.
Yeah.
this is, let's go. Okay, so these are single families.
Okay,
This is a condo in
Oh.
Crane's Nest.
okay.
Right next door to it is this one.
Oh,
This had a side load because of the way the road wrapped around, and then this is in downtown Middleton. This is an idea of lower slung roof pitches and where you're building into the roof, not going floor lower than big roof
right.
up here.
This is a single family, though?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Find some.
Well, if this is going to be a,
Yes, Dennis.
it's going to be, going to have to be, become part of Middleton, be annexed to Middleton. And by our code, all of these lots, or 8 through 16 here, meet the requirements, in fact, exceed the requirements for a single family, an R1. It seems to me if there's an issue, maybe the thing to do is to not do it all as a PPD, but do the condo as the PPD and bring the rest in as part of straight part of it. And because those, I guess just because what I have shouldn't influence my neighbors. Those decisions shouldn't be influenced by what they adjoin. Because they meet the requirements for the city. If they're part of the city, they meet the requirements. And these requirements were larger. I think at one time back in the 80s, they were 10,000 square foot lots, and we made them down to 72 so that people would be able to, with the hope that people would build smaller, more affordable homes. That didn't quite happen. They just built bigger homes with less yard. But, the intent is there, and these things match our R1. So I don't see any reason why we should even have to hassle with that, because they could bring that into the city as R1 lots.
And I understand exactly what you're saying, and I felt that way for a while, but then I thought about some of the things that were talked about last night and some of the control we would have, and I think what they're describing with the arts and crafts and the bungalow style is a very attractive home, and if we can have a lesser front setback that we would, in a PDD that we wouldn't have it in R1, and a greater rear setback, maybe it's done with deed restriction in an R1, I don't know, but somehow have a little more control as a city and a neighborhood to make, this neighborhood, this community that would be built, make everything work.
I thought our front setback was 20 or is it 24?
It can be 20 if it produces a difference in alignment of no more than 6. So if you put them all at 20, you could do that.
Yeah.
But then you'd have to probably have a deed restriction to have a greater rear setback. So you could, conceivably do that.
Once the deed restriction is executed, it's unlikely it's ever going to change.
Right.
Right. My own preference would be to do it as a PDD, because one of the things I would like you to see the feasibility of is in the back, actually make like a 10 or 20 foot strip in the back, part of a homeowners association, since there will be a private road anyway. That would be like a stormwater swale kind of shared space that provides that kind of property line buffer also. Or the PDD gives us more flexibility on frontage requirements as we loop around that cul-de-sac.
And actually,
It's just, I think, easier to do the whole site as one PDD.
and I like that idea. When I looked at the water coming from the culvert on the east side of Highway Q, and I didn't see actually the water there, but I could see how the grass was bent. So it's probably, I don't know, somebody would know how much water is coming, but that some water has to go somewhere. So I think that's a good idea, so.
We'll have that answer for you when the stormwater,
Pardon me?
we'll have that answer for you.
All right.
Mark was saying yesterday that it comes from that culvert across this open space right now. So there's no stormwater management now, and it just flows right into North Lake.
Yes.
This would actually, hits there, right? So there's nothing on that site right now because it's agriculture. It doesn't have to have stormwater management. So it just runs right through it.
Well, I saw it going up to the road, but I didn't know where it went thereafter, if there's a, stormwater inlet there or where that is, so.
This Q is sloping down as you go north.
Correct. No,
Yes.
This way.
Yes.
Yep.
That's a good question.
Yeah, Cindy.
One of the concern, or one of the things you listed in the staff comments and mentioned was the length of the cul-de-sac. Does, if the zoning is all PDD, does that have any effect on being able to accommodate that?
Well, the city can grant a variance for that. It's an issue really with the, you know.
That's
public
independent of the
safety.
zoning.
Right.
It's in the subdivision code.
Right, it's in
Okay.
the subdivision.
Part of it's for the fire department to make sure that they
Right,
can.
It's
no,
for
I know why
safety.
it's there, but I was wondering about the variation, the variance, okay.
Well, I'll say it again, but I'm just not in favor of this PPD thing for everything, because everything comes back to us as an SIP. And it's everything. It's little this and that's and picking up the scraps here and there.
That's the advantage
If
of a
it
PDD.
fits,
That's the advantage of PDD.
if it, I mean, lots of almost all of our neighborhoods have been built with stormwater management of some sort. There's swales that are around where I live too. When you got the same contractor doing it all, really easy to talk to yourself to make sure that there is a swale there, as opposed to having to have it, into an agreement, as though it's one continuous thing. I just, to me, that's, 9 less headaches. Potential headaches.
So, but we don't need to decide that today. I think once we have some input from the Stormwater Commission and the Public Works and the other committees, PRFC, so I think that's when we make that decision, right?
Well, I just wanted to throw it out there, because
Yeah,
nobody's
but that is a good idea, Cindy.
I was going to propose to make a motion. Are we ready for that?
Okay, all right.
To refer the concept plan to Public Works and Parks and Water Resources Management?
Okay, do we need to send it to anyone else?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all right. Now,
Do we need to send it to the, Public Works covers the police and fire? Right, who would, or is that just staff level review?
Staff, it gets sent to the.
Sent to the fire,
department
police, okay.
anyway.
The RFC is Parks, Recreational, Forest. Yeah, that's
mhm.
Yep.
I
I
don't,
like that, Cindy.
pardon me?
I abbreviated it.
Okay, so any discussion now? Any further discussion? Everybody happy? We are ready to vote? Okay, if I call the question, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion is passed to refer this to various committees.
Can I just mention one more thing?
Yes,
about notifying?
yes.
I mentioned it last night at the joint committee meeting, but I would just urge anybody who's interested in following this to sign up for Notify Me on the city's website. Just go on our website, find the Notify Me link, and you can put your email in and sign up for all those committees we just mentioned, and also the Planning Commission, the Middleton Westport Joint Zoning Committee, Public Works, Water Resources, and Parks. And then what will happen is, every time there's an agenda that goes out for those meetings, you'll get a notice, you'll get an email, and you can go and look at that to see if there's anything related to this. Because at some point, it will come back to the Planning Commission for setting a public hearing, or it will go to the council for discussion of annexation. And you can also always email staff if you have questions. You can find my email, it's Eileen Kelly, on the website, if you have questions or want to know what's happening. But best that you get a notice right away if you want to receive those, notify me. So I just like to put a plug in for that, because it's a pretty good system. You don't have to sign up for all 80 for 80 notices.
But you can if you want.
But you can if you want.
Well, thank you to everybody who came for this item. Thank you. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is, are we ready, guys?
Compass properties.
This is the specific implementation plan modification for parking expansion for campus properties, Esther Place, 1850 Deming Way.
And I
Eileen.
apologize if this was tougher to find in the packet. I hadn't realized that the first page didn't say Compass Properties, so I apologize. But,
Figured it out.
yeah, thank you. One of the issues, the biggest, I think, outstanding issue is stormwater management, and they're working on that with our engineers. And then also staff comments, which I think our staff will start reviewing it. But it's essentially adding 60 to 80 parking
69.
and then also showing some future mixed-use development area, but that would come back for approval at a later date. And then just approval of the, conditioned on the approval of the
Turn to the third page. That.
landscaping by our city forester, because he would use all of them too.
You guys want to say something? Identify yourself, and let's hear from you.
Hi, Todd Greenwald with Compass Properties, billing owner. Yeah, so we're looking at expanding the parking lot. We've been extremely successful with the project in bringing tenants to the building, which we're quite happy with, and bringing jobs to Middleton. And in doing that, we've brought jobs, so we now need to let people park, which is the reason for the expansion of the parking lot. So it's for us, we realize that it's a bit of a straightforward project. We have built a really good relationship with the city and respect the process, which is what we want to do, and we want to make sure that everything is covered and that everyone is happy with what we're doing. We believe we've done that, but obviously we're here for that discussion.
So what I see is you have 471 parking spaces now.
Approximately correct.
And, well, this is what you say here, and by adding this, it becomes to 540. So that's what you need now?
I don't have those numbers in front of me, I apologize, but yeah, if those numbers are what's in front of you, then yes, that would be correct. Yes.
And there's no additional driveways, it's just access on the existing driveways.
Correct.
So then you have a phase 2 coming there? Is that your plan?
We have several plans and concepts for the property and the land there. Right now, we want to address the immediate need for the parking at the 1850 Deming Way address, which is the single-story flex building. That's what this parking is doing, is satisfying the need for additional parking specifically to that 1850 address. In doing so, also, it allows us to maneuver parking around a little bit towards the back of the building and just essentially make everybody happy.
Yeah, you do lose a lot of green space there, but that's how it is, right? Right now, it really looks very nice, but
thank you. Yeah, and I think we're minimizing the loss of green space. Mm-hmm. We're not losing a whole lot of green space. The green space that's being lost is essentially grassy areas, flat grassy areas. The plan that Smith Group JJR put together incorporates a lot of new landscaping, which I think is extremely attractive and adds to the what we believe is extremely aesthetic property, and just increases even more. So I think that everything we're doing is a win-win.
They do have a maximum in this area. I think it's 70 to 80% impervious overall for anything that they add.
So you also
That was part of the GDP?
So you also have some improving the lighting, and you will take care of the stormwater issues and the landscape.
I'll speak to the lighting a bit, and then turn it over to Smith Group JJR here. But we're also conscious of the lighting impact. We've chosen not to add lighting. I believe we're adding one head.
We're adding one head on the back of an existing pole to give us a little bit more coverage to the new parking lot. That's good.
We're conscious of the artificial lighting in the area, and we would prefer not to inundate the area with artificial lights, and so that's the reason for just the single head. It's still going to have great coverage and still provide great security lighting and path lighting, travel lighting, and then be conscious of the artificial lighting added to the area.
I'm sure Dennis would appreciate that. He's the lighting expert, so.
You would then.
Yes, I would.
Yes, Kathy.
I'm looking up here where the existing driveway is, which is right across from Terrace,
Mm-hmm.
and on the crest of the hill. That is a really, the more traffic you have going in and out of there, I think will be just worse. If there's a way we could.
Yeah, and I agree. This is not going to add any traffic. The traffic that's coming through there is already accessing the space.
It is.
So I would comment that any increased traffic there would be minimal to none. The traffic flow coming in from University is already coming in.
Yeah. Well,
they're just accessing it down further.
Would this be a good opportunity to kind of move that further up so that you don't have that blind hill coming up? Would this be an opportunity to do anything with that?
Move it up.
More towards Greenway, so it's not, you're right at the blind coming over the crest of the hill.
Yeah, we have that drive that's coming in on Deming there,
right,
which is kind of splits the difference on the lot. I don't know. And respectfully, I don't think it would solve any type of issues. And I agree, the traffic there is an issue. I would argue that it's more of the railroad track hump
Oh,
that
yeah.
causes the issue there.
That's why it can't be.
Yeah.
If we could just.
But yeah, I would say that the traffic that's coming through that area is already coming through. I don't think we're adding any density or vehicular traffic to that area. The drive there, the approach stays as is. So the vehicles that are coming in and out there are either already coming in and out there or just coming down further. So the vehicular count is the same.
Yeah.
So
Done some studies to see about moving Terrace a little bit because it's so, and I'm just saying that it.
And I agree. It's definitely a concern. I don't think that what we're doing, the work that we're doing, would have an impact, positive or negative, on the traffic there.
So you're actually adding 50 parking spaces in the area where Kathy is mentioning there, close to the railroad tracks, right? 42 right next to the railroad tracks and 8 a little bit on the opposite side of it.
This is University.
So that's what you're adding there.
That's the railroad track.
Yeah, I'm John Rubel with Smith Group JKR, and that's correct. A lot of the parking we are installing on the north edge of that existing access drive that's on there. It's within the electric and gas easement that's also uncovered on the property as well too.
Okay.
Will people access, it looks like there are other ways to access those spaces too, other than the one Kathy was talking about. Do you have any idea how the traffic flows through there now? And are they likely to access those spaces different ways?
Because there's already.
I would say that the access is going to be the same as it is now, with the traffic patterns that have been established on the property. Either that main drive along the railroad tracks, there's traffic that comes in and out there that accesses the property through there, and then coming in on Deming, which is the main drive, you have the access that comes in and flows in front of the 1850 entry there, the main entry that faces Deming Way. So the traffic pattern on the property, I don't think changes at all. I think it's exactly the same.
Okay.
So the people you're providing parking for now, where do they park right now? They're already employed?
They are already employed, yeah.
So they're on the street?
They're not on the street, no. They're behind the building, behind the 1800 Deming Way, the tower, the 4-story tower.
Yeah.
There's that lot back there.
This one?
Correct, yeah. So there's a lot, there's what we're trying to do is we're trying to shift the parking from there and bring it essentially around so that the tenants and employees of 1850 can park within the proximity of 1850, and then the tenants, guests, and employees of 1800 are parking in the proximity of 1800.
This would be parking for the 1800, and then these would be for the 1800.
I can just come over and verify.
All right. So you want the 1800 tenants to park there?
Yeah, so 1800, 1800-ish.
Yeah,
right?
and
then 1850, 1850-ish.
So 1850 is paradigm?
Kathy wants to move the driveway down there.
Me too.
I would the new entrance box.
Yep, me too.
Yeah, and
You wouldn't lose anything in terms of
Be walking from here if I didn't.
well, to comment to that on the proposed movement, it may be premature in stating it, but we're looking at doing some additional work on that and development on that specific grassy area in the front there, which would then shift the traffic pattern on the site. The plan with what we're doing now is to specifically address the immediate need, and then within the future develop a new plan which may include some additional redevelopment in that area.
where it says future
Yes, David.
phase 2.
Correct.
I mean, you're clearly minimizing the amount of space that you've got to do that. So you'd be talking about something more significant in terms of solving parking?
In that phase 2 area is the question? Yeah, if we would be doing additional parking, we would have to go underground at that point.
Yeah, I see. It says here, Phase 2, future parking garage.
Yeah, and then the back of the building, yes, there's talk of a potential parking structure in the back area.
Yep.
This is all future, though. That's not what we're talking today.
So 1850 is the paradigm, so they're adding a lot of people then?
WTS Paradigm is there, and then
Okay.
we just brought in Esker from Madison. We brought it to Middleton.
Oh, okay.
So WTS Paradigm has about 160 employees, and Esker is growing. I believe they plan to be in the 160 to 180 employee range within the next 2 to 3 years.
And this is all normal business hour office.
Correct.
It's not production facilities.
It is not. No, it's all just standard 9 to 5 type stuff.
Any more questions, Dennis? You are happy with the lighting?
I would just, echo your comment about the loss of the front lawn.
Yeah.
I dearly miss with the Wisconsin Trade Center building. It made it look special. Now it makes it look diminished.
I know it was
lost.
Beautiful lawn there.
You do add something really to it, so I hope
Yeah, no, and it's a valid concern that we had also, and it's something that I think Smith Group JJR and their team tackled very well. I think that the trade-off with higher elevation type landscaping, you have the flat grassy areas, but I think the landscaping that will be added, that's being done with this project, is going to be extremely aesthetic, and I think add to the overall
Well, you
look.
will enhance the railroad side.
It's tough to enhance the railroad side. I have a few ideas how to do it, but that might be another meeting.
Okay, any more questions? Yes.
I'll make a motion.
Sure. Oh, yes, David.
Just one more question. There are two kinds of trees. There are trees in heavy ink and there are trees in faint ink. Right? Along the
landscape plan.
eastern side. On the landscape plan, yes.
That is
Along
correct. Some of those trees we've noted as a future and be part of the Phase 2 development as well too. Just as Compass Properties is working on developing those plans and getting back in front of you as well too. They don't want to put in something that's going to hinder that or have to be demolished within a couple of years. So noting that too with your landscape calculation sheet, how these would be incorporated in there as well too as the future development comes online.
Okay, that I find sad. I think if those trees went in, it would help some of the questions of losing that losing the front of the building.
Well, and two, it looks like I hadn't looked at this previously, but it looks like the additional points that would be required from the new parking lot wouldn't be met without the Phase 2 points. Is that right?
You want to add something? Maybe you didn't have any chance to speak. I guess you should have equal chance, right?
The calculation was built on all the plans, both in what's listed as Phase 1 and Phase 2. That is correct, yes. So to achieve the credit that was needed for the project, for the amount of spaces that were required, yes, it would need both Phase 1 and Phase 2 plans.
So you are the landscaper?
John's actually a landscape architect.
Oh.
I'm a civil engineer. If there was any questions on the stormwater, I was here to present.
Well, do you want to say anything?
The landscape architect.
So you're going to make sure the stormwater is handled well, right? Okay. Okay, all right.
And I think what he's saying is these deciduous trees and shrubs listed as Phase 2 would really help kind of moderate that parking structure view from Deming if they were put in right away because of the loss of that front lawn.
The reason for the phasing is kind of selfish in the fact that we're looking at this potential redevelopment. The goal in phasing it and the request for the phase for the landscaping was that we didn't want to install something that we knew could eventually be disturbed or otherwise removed, which in fairness to the landscape we didn't want to do. We believe that in phasing it we could create a much more aesthetic approach in properly programming the plantings and the landscaping instead of saying let's just throw it in for the sake of throwing it in now and 12 months from now we rip it out and put in something else somewhere else.
So is that when you expect, maybe within a year or two, or the Phase 2?
We don't have a specific timeline, but we understand the importance of getting that landscaping in and getting it in sooner instead of later.
Okay.
But we don't have an established timeline.
So are you thinking that the parking that we're now talking about would disappear in Phase 2?
It may not it won't disappear in its entirety. If I could come over and just point out, just so you can see where I'm talking. This area right here is the area that we're concerned about that may have an impact on some landscaping in this general area. But this line right here is the area that we have the most concern about with disturbance that could be a phase.
Okay, there's a tree there,
Yes.
tree there, and a tree there.
Could you point out somehow so that all the members can see what you're pointing out?
You could just come over here and do it on
Just
one of
show it
these.
to,
So is it on page
draw it on
4?
Kathy's plan.
Put it on the one in the middle. Just show it on the one in the middle here, and then we can all three see it.
So we don't all lose sight here. The point Abby made is still
That's what I
valid.
thought.
Area
Yes.
right here
Is we're
is
short
the area that
phase
we are
one
concerned
planting.
about
It would have
of
to
doing
be a
additional disturbance.
temporary
Yes, and that should be addressed.
thing.
So it needs to be addressed.
Yes.
Or we could ask for decent trees.
Right? Yes. Abby would like the number of decent trees. Let's add that to. so-
Decent trees?
Well, not.
The number as well as-
Not inch and a half.
No. I hope we've proven that with our property, we want to enhance and we don't want to detract. So we would certainly be open to a definition of a decent tree.
For the Class A rent you're getting, I don't think they would put in.
We have no desire to diminish the property or otherwise.
There are three trees in
Oh, yes.
parking bays, right? Which certainly should go in now.
So you have 24 places there. So.
I think the point here is that we need to see a landscape plan. The point here is we need to see a landscape plan now.
Okay.
Meets the requirements of phase one.
Okay. So
And we can talk about,
Okay.
we're not going to design this sitting around this table.
Yeah.
I think it needs to go back and we need to get a landscape plan
okay.
that meets the requirements of phase one.
Or they could propose to say that they would put the parking lot in, put a certain amount for phase one, and then by next year at this date, or 2 months, like 10 months from now, they would put the second phase of landscaping in, or come in with the plan. I mean, that could, the plan
That's a
commission
possibility.
has, you have done that before when there's, because typically what happens if somebody's putting in a lot in the fall, we don't necessarily require that they put the landscaping in until the spring
Right.
anyway, so they could conceivably come in with a phase and say, if by this date certain we haven't done it, we will, or we'll bring back a plan for.
So I'm going to make the motion, but I'm going to just ask, do we want that to come back before us or just conditional on staff approval of the landscape plan?
Lee, what do you think?
I see nodding of heads, conditional on staff approval. So that'll be my motion to approve the SAP modification for the parking spaces, subject to staff approval of a landscape plan, either enough landscaping to satisfy the conditions of phase one, or some agreement to put them in at a later date if phase two is not forthcoming.
Second.
So why would you? Wouldn't you want that? We don't know about phase two, so shouldn't they meet the requirements of?
Right, so if they don't meet the requirements of phase one by a year or 18 months, and no phase two has been proposed, then they have to put in the landscaping.
Okay.
That doesn't work for you?
Or maybe it's 10 months, or.
Yeah, I would
Summer.
be more inclined for 10 months rather than 18 months. Things change. So, how do you guys feel about it? I mean, you probably would want to have a landscape plan sooner than later, or maybe you already have it. But
Well, the landscape plan is what we provided. So the landscape plan that we have right here shows everything that's required
Okay.
and meets the city's requirements as far as points go.
So it does.
It does.
Abby. So
It does if they put in phase two.
If everything were to be installed as drawn right here and indicated phase one, phase two, if it
Okay.
were all to be installed immediately, it would meet the city's requirements. Our goal is that we don't do that simply because of the disturbance to the landscaping. That could be forthcoming. If the city were to require that everything be installed, obviously we would honor that. I don't think it's...
Well, I think our intent is that we'll give you some amount of time if phase two is going to be coming
Completely fair and
forth.
acceptable, yeah.
But if the market goes south or ideas change and you're not putting in phase two, we would want that landscaping in sooner rather than later.
Understood.
Okay.
I would be interested to know if you add those 3 trees that are in the parking bays, whether you meet the landscape requirements?
Yes, sir. All the trees that are shown on the plan, if we install both the trees that are shown as current phase and phase 2, that does meet the landscape requirements.
I'm leaving 5 trees out. Just the 3 that are in the islands, the refuges, whatever you want to call them, in the parking. You wouldn't meet the requirements?
You have to do all of the trees that are on there to meet.
To meet the requirements, okay.
We would be happy to install those 3s if it would be approved.
No, well, I certainly think they should go in now, because you're not going to change, you might change that parking bay, but in the meantime, that's some shade in that parking area.
Yes, sir. And I believe all the landscape that we're showing in this new center island that's being built, basically directly to the west of the new parking lot, we've all considered that as part of the first phase. It was only some of the trees that are shown to the east of that parcel.
Are you talking about the trees that are in the tree islands on the east part?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3?
Yeah.
He's talking about these ones. Right. 1,
Sure. Basically, my motion says you have to make Abby happy.
And Aline, I guess. Well, anyway, yes.
Whoever's staff.
Okay, further questions or discussion? All right, it looks like we are ready to vote. So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so the motion passes, and they will meet with the staff and make sure that the staff is, all the requirements are met. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thanks.
Okay, so the next item is Middleton Center Parking Management Plan, Hubbard Avenue, Parmenter Street, Elmwood, Parmenter Street.
And I can talk to this in a minute.
And, okay.
Too, but
Okay, Aline, so.
They've taken a stab, I think, at the language. The idea is that we would have some absolute authority to evaluate each phase of the project 1 year after full occupation of that project. Our attorney's going to help us with language, so whatever happens tonight would have to be contingent upon the city attorney providing that language. I did double check with Walker Parking because there's so many numbers that we've dealt with the parking. I wanted to verify that daytime parking for all 7 days of the week is fine, given the requirements, with the addition of the 17 lifts in Phase 1 and 29 in Phase 2. We're still, and then he thought it was great, our parking 6 during the week after 5 in the Terrace Avenue lots. They're proposing a combination of things after 5 on the weekends, the 2 days of the weekend, and that's one of the things we just are still nailing down and still want to be having evaluation. He thought it was a great idea that we have, that we can go back and request more parking or a different solution if it doesn't work. So.
Why are you asking for approval now before you have all these conversations?
Well, the thing there's a couple things that are still to be done. It's the attorney language, and he didn't have a chance to, we didn't have a chance to work on it together, he and I. So if you want to see that, we could, bring it back here, hopefully the next time. But everything that gets done in this plan will also be revised and added to the GIP and the SIP, so it's clear when you're picking up a document related to this, here's what's happening with the parking. They've made big changes in the parking management plan to reflect what's actually happening, and the biggest thing that's missing is that language on the evaluation and the requirement for additional parking. But that's going to be legal language that we can rely on 5 or 10 years into the future to require additional parking. And that's why I guess they've made huge progress.
Sorry, the legal language will be in the GIP, the SIP, and the developer's agreement for TIF.
And the parking management plan.
The parking management plan.
The parking management plan's referenced in the TIF agreement as well. So
Yeah,
we need to
it
update
is.
that.
Mhm.
I think we're scheduled to do that the next.
Could you please identify yourself and?
Oh, sorry, Taylor Brengel, 2 Enterprise.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of background. I'm sure you guys have it at this point, but this parking management plan, I believe, was adopted September 2016, so last September. There's something close to there. So this is the original parking management plan. We've made some changes to what our GIP and SIP are for the whole Middleton Center development. And so then essentially we're updating the parking management plan to accommodate those. And language in here also contemplates that we'll probably need to update it again when phase 3 is all finalized as well, because we don't know the number of bike parking stalls, etc. So it's kind of a work in progress, but essentially how the TIF agreement was structured is every time the TIF was granted to one LLC, and then separate LLCs are actually developing each phase. So we're going to have to do a TIF amendment every time we do a phase. So I've already drafted the TIF amendment and sent that to Matt Fleming for review, so that will be in front of council, but anyways, yeah, so that's kind of the background.
And it's not unusual for the documents to be approved with the list of conditions that we have, and I'm preparing that for the Middleton Center folks so that they can just run through it and know these are the things that have to get done. And at the end, which we did for phase 1, and we actually did for the previous approval for phase 2, we had documents submitted that incorporated all the changes that needed to be made, and that's what would happen in this case too. The documents all get changed because I don't want to be here 5 years from now sorting through stuff and saying what was done. We want one complete set of documents, and that's what we're working toward.
So what do we gain by approving this today versus when it's complete?
Well, the biggest thing that's missing from it, it's primarily complete except for that language from the attorney to say we have that authority. And that's a condition of the SIP and the GIP and the TIF anyway, so we're going to add those to that.
It's a condition we're not in disagreement over either. It's just a matter of legal,
matter of setting a threshold or a trigger.
But the question is, why did we bring it here even for this meeting?
I guess because it's complete except for that language, and that language is going to be very technical. If you want to see that language, we can.
But the planning component of it is done. It's just the legal language.
That's a good way to say it, the planning.
Okay.
And council will still get a kick, or not a kick. This will be before council as well.
They'll get a kick at that can.
So yeah, so that legal language I would anticipate is Matt or Larry.
Right.
Either one of them. I'll work with one of them.
And I don't even know if it's going to be ready for next Tuesday.
Okay.
But
yeah,
it is a condition of approval, and it does have to be in it.
Okay, so Larry's working on it. Yes,
I just wanted, with the language, what the language is going to say. After phase 1, 1 year later, they will do a study. No, who will?
I think we can take some of their numbers, but I think we want to also do our own evaluation. Based on the 2013 Walker parking base of, open spaces and parking demand. And make an evaluation.
So the study will be done, phase 1 complete, 1 year from then, phase 2, another, phase 3, another. And at that time, when it's totally complete, is that when they're going to, like if it's woefully short or it meets everything, is that when things will happen?
Or after each phase.
There's a trigger.
Yeah, there'd be some threshold that if it's reached, the city says, you got to do it. An example is the Holiday Inn. It was built as a Holiday Inn, now it's the Marriott, back in 1990. We had no parking standard requirement for a convention center. It was new. We knew what to require for a hotel, but we had no idea for a 60,000 square foot convention center how much traffic there would be. So we let the developer, who had developed, 50 of these across the country, propose something, and the city, the council, the planning commission said, okay, we'll accept that, but we want you to have some parking that you're going to have that we can require you to add at whatever point we think it's needed. And in fact, he had to build the additional parking about 3 years after our occupancy of it. So it's similar to that. And in this case, it may not say a solution. We may say, if we come to you and say that there isn't sufficient parking, or they're not utilizing it appropriately, then you need to propose a solution, or you will not be in compliance with the zoning requirements. And then not to.
And this makes sense to me because we have a parking requirement, and I have been asking that how does it compare to the other cities, and how does even Walker's requirement compares? How old is that? So in this case, based on usage, we can find out that whether there's the access or there's a shortage. And I think that really does make sense, because this will not be based on certain number, it will be based on the real time usage thing. So I think that part is good.
And this is something we want too as the developer. I mean, it's something we've been working on with city staff to reevaluate, because it's a development like this has never happened. Or I mean, it's fair to say a development like this, mixed use
in
with
downtown.
all, it's a different use, and for reasons that Terrence has brought up at previous meetings, the Walker study may not fully grasp Middleton just because it's a unique situation. But and also just wanted to add to that too, we'll pay for the additional Walker study as well. So I mean, it's
And they've paid for all the Walker studies to date except for the initial one.
So I think like over how much?
I just want to make sure that
100,000.
I don't think it's quite that much.
A lot of money.
Yes, yes, Kathy.
the Downtown Business Association, they're going to be watching this, and they will have to be aware that this is going to be 1-year study. I mean, they can't say 6 months out, this isn't working. We're just going to have to make sure that they understand, because they've asked for studies, and it's cost the city money, and we want to make sure that that they wait with the.
That there's a process.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, when phase 1 is done, phase 3 is not started, so we still have the parking in that parking lot, which I forgot how many stalls are there.
Right.
So that does provide
At least
some.
30.
We're not starting phase 3 until phase 1 is 1 year open. So we're not going to start phase 3 until next year. So to address that concern.
Okay, so who is going to make the downtown folks aware, the developer or the city, that there's a 1-year phase for the evaluation? We will let them know?
Sure, we can let the.
I meet with the Downtown Business Association
Okay.
each month, so I can make that part of
Okay, I think it will be important that they are made aware that.
Because it's not to say that we aren't going to have some parking issues, because, we could have all the parking in the world, we still have parking issues if people are parking where maybe they shouldn't be or other places. But we think we have a good solution to.
Yeah, well, we want to deal with the parking issues created by this development, not due to other reasons. Yes, David?
Can I be assured that the car share credit, the buses, the bicycles, all those things, will also be evaluated when the thing is done?
Bet.
Yeah, because I'm very skeptical about,
Sure.
certainly about the bus part of it.
I think it's the whole package that would be evaluated. How's that working? Is that a good substitute for, spaces?
And we should, at that time, also look at the components. Is it the bus part which isn't working, bike part, or the others? So in that way, it makes, going forward, it will make things easier, so.
And in 15 years, we're going to have to worry about what to do with all this empty parking.
Exactly, that's why we're trying to
Yeah,
make it a.
that's what George
Maybe
would
it'll be- maybe
say.
it'd be a good warehouse for drone delivery services.
Looking forward to that.
Well, that's why I wanted to be realistic. So I think after a year, we would know what realistic is. And of course, the time is changing, and, things will change, but we can't do much about that, so. Any more?
I
Yes?
just had a comment, and then I wanted to make a motion, but I think learning that the city is doing its own study along, I think it's nice that there'll be walking companions, because there's safety in numbers. And every day at 11 o'clock in the morning, it'll be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to do that.
it'd be a dynamo.
Okay.
But I'd also like to make a motion to approve this parking agreement, subject to the language provided by the city attorney.
And any other requirements?
And any comments provided by
Right.
staff and.
Yeah. The rest of what you wrote there.
Okay. We need
That's
a,
okay with you?
I'll second
Yes.
the motion.
okay. We have a motion is made by Dennis and second by Cindy, and any discussion, any questions? Okay, if there are no more questions, I call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. The next one is also again about the Middleton Center, and it's a request for tax incremental finance district 3, TED 3 increased assistance. Middleton Center Phase 2. Now, Aline would let us know it's a developer finance tip. So the taxpayers are not on the hook in this case. So Eileen, go ahead.
Sure, if they don't create it, they don't receive it. When they first came in with their TIF request, they felt that there were $12 million, which is now $15 million in eligible TIF expenses. that were but they are looking for other funding sources for some of those. But the project only looked like it would fund 7.3 million, I think it was, plus the interest of the developer financed. Now they have two things. One, they made a mistake in their original calculation of the value. That's been looked at by our finance director and our assessor. And also, they got a lower interest rate, so they are requesting another $145,000 in developer finance for a total of an additional $801,504 for phase two. And again, it's developer financed, and if they don't create that value, they will not receive it.
Yes,
So if
correct.
they got a lower interest rate, that
4.75.
lowers their TIF eligible expense, but they're asking for more because the value is going to be higher?
Right,
Yeah.
because the value's gonna, well, the value's gonna be higher than we had originally.
Yeah, there's more
thought.
value created.
More value.
And you get that value because you're assuming a 6% cap rate. What are market cap rates right now?
We've seen low fives for apartments. I mean, especially a product like this with, we have quartz countertops, quartz bathroom finishes, quartz on the windowsills. I mean, it's wood blinds. I mean, it's a top tier development. So
So you've seen low 5 cap rates, but you're going with 6.
we want to be conservative. So it seems counterintuitive, but
Right.
these numbers, and Bill Burns can attest to this, and Paul Musser, but
Yeah.
we were conservative. It sounds funny to say this, but we could have pushed it a little bit further, but essentially, as we're saying, it's developer finance TIF,
Right.
so if we don't generate that income, then we're, it's out of pocket.
Yeah, I think they feel like they might be leaving some on the
Value is
table
in
that
LA,
they could
but
have
cap rate.
asked for, but we said, this is a conservative.
The lower cap rate creates higher value.
My concern is that, let's say, economy, something happens, that is it inducing the developer to take too much risk? So that is my concern. But again, it is the developer financed, but, what will be the consequences? That is my concern, so.
So it's guaranteed by individuals involved with our company. I don't think there's any question. Terrence Wall personally guarantees these loans. The bank, State Bank Cross Plains, who we'll be using, they do thorough underwriting process, so they wouldn't underwrite this loan if they didn't know that he had liquidity to pay it off if there were any issues in the short term.
Okay, any more questions? Yes.
I'll move to recommend approval of the additional financing to the amount of $801,584 for Phase 2 to the Common Council.
Okay.
Second?
Any discussion? It is a developer finance tip, so, okay, I call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, so the motion passes. So thank you, Tyler. So the next one is specific implementation plan modification for a fence for the Fidelity Investments 8235 Deming Way.
And the applicant, the owner of the building is here.
Yes, let's, actually Greenway, I miss, Fidelity 8235 Greenway.
And the
All right.
recommendation is for approval.
So let's hear from you.
Great. My name is Anna Burrish, and what we're trying to do, we own the Fidelity building that's on Greenway. And right next to us, our neighbor is the World of Beer, which is a win-win on a Friday night, but Fidelity is an investment business. And so for privacy, you can understand if you were a client of Fidelity and you are walking into to sign in or to have a meeting, and the deck is right here, and maybe your neighbor is sitting there. So we've tried to create a very nice fence, Joe and myself, in doing it with arborvitae. But the problem with the arborvitae are that they are tall, narrow trees, which then create the kind of picket fence. So now we're at the place where we'd like to be able to put a solid fence, and the solid fence would be something that would look like this, in a neutral color. It would go the length of the deck, and as you can see from the diagram, it would go the length of the deck along with just one more panel past, which would then continue to give privacy to my clients, to the clients.
Actually, pictures look pretty good, so, and it makes sense. Yes, Dennis.
As somebody who hates fences, I would like to move that we approve this fence design.
Wow.
I thought you were going to say something about you
Wow.
move that we do a field trip to World of Beers.
Despite the fact that it's 8 feet tall.
Yes, especially because it's 8 feet tall, it's a deck.
Yes.
You know, in this case, it makes sense.
I can't believe Dennis made it.
Yeah.
All right.
No,
This
if
actually
you've been to
does
that
what it's
area,
supposed to
it
do.
needs a fence, yeah.
Right.
The previous
So-
discussion was not going to produce the result they.
Okay, so we need a second now.
I did second.
Okay, all right.
And the colors.
Let the discussion
I
begin.
have a question. Have you talked to World of Beers about this and how to
Yes, and we've had multiple discussions for a whole year, trying to alleviate. We thought about maybe putting a different screen. We've talked about a bunch of different things, but it just hasn't been able, along with trash and noise and just for privacy. So Jeff is aware, which is the owner of World of Beers, that we're going to put a fence up. He's aware. He's been copied in on everything, and he understands. Hopefully, we'll be able to keep the trees that are on our side.
So the World of Beers will just have the fence, and you'll have a fence with trees?
That is correct. They will be saying this.
How
So-
close are those buildings? Because every time I hypothetically go there, it looks pretty close.
Exactly.
It's like 10 feet between the buildings?
Exactly.
And then the deck
The
extends.
deck is like 6 inches,
From
4
the-
inches from my property line.
This is going to
Put up a big fence.
4.9 feet.
Oh, yeah, okay.
4.9.
I know, it's not like building a wall. We tried really hard to try to make it aesthetically pleasing for both sides, but you can understand it was hard for privacy. We looked at putting a living wall, but then the cost of that, you can imagine.
Well, if you build a wall, you should make them pay for it. No, sorry.
I'm not going there. I'm going to pay for this.
I like that, not going there, yes. So only thing which we want to make sure is that you have talked to the World of Beer and they are okay with this. So
Yes.
that's the main thing, that you want to keep your neighbors happy.
Yep.
Okay.
Jeff and I have talked about that.
Okay,
And he knows that I'm here
Okay.
today and
Okay.
has seen the samples.
okay, that's important.
Would it be important then for me to put a letter back to you, a sign?
Uh,
Would that be?
What do you, I think we take your word, so.
Great.
Okay, guys, any more questions or discussion? Well, our motion has been made by Dennis and one second by Cindy.
Get that in the paper? Dennis is approving a fence.
Thank you, Dennis.
And I call the question, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion for the fence next to Fidelity 8 feet tall is passed.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anna.
Seen it all.
Okay, so the next one is specific implementation plan, modification for signage, UW Health Pharmacy, 3185 Damming Way. Anybody here from the pharmacy? All right, let's, okay, so, all right, so that's fine too, so,
Is this kitty corner from the bus?
Yes.
For the cross, okay. So the building's not in yet? Or is it?
no, building is already coming up, so,
Yeah, it,
I haven't driven by recently.
yeah, it went up pretty quickly.
yeah, it looks,
It's not a retail pharmacy,
Everything
right?
but the
It's a-
drugs.
Everything what?
everything but the drugs, he says, he's,
Everything but the fence.
No, the drugs.
If you have drugs, you need a fence.
Dennis is quite humorous today, so this is great. So this is the Pavloki fan signs, right? Okay. Yeah, you want to say your name and then,
I'm Dan with Pablocky. I'm Dan Schumann.
okay, all right. Let's hear from you.
Well, you've got the.
Whatever I have looked at it, it looks actually good.
Yeah.
So actually, sign department, I think the Mark looked at too, and so Abby, it is. You're happy with it?
I actually didn't review this one, Mark did.
Is Mark happy with it?
He recommended
Mark's
approval.
recommendation is for approval,
Yep.
with a few conditions.
Okay. Anybody has any questions for?
Well, yes, I just, are these signs already made?
No, they're not.
They're not, okay. So that I can feel like I can actually ask this question.
Go ahead.
It might making a difference, which I think in the past has not always been true.
Yes.
This is another one of the situations like we have over at Cromrie, where is if you look at the bill, if you look at one, if you can see one sign, you can see the other sign. And although what is being proposed here is perfectly legit, and, you know, and all the rest of it,
Yep.
it is a warehouse.
It's what?
It's a warehouse, and I'm kind of wondering how much signage a warehouse needs. Certainly where the trucks should turn in, that would make sense to me. And either the monument or the one on the building. The monument, I think, looks nicer, would be, and serves a purpose from both directions. But I just wonder about that one on the building, on the facade, you know?
Okay.
It's their money, they want to put it up, and it meets all the requirements, but I point out again, you know, the world is just full of signs.
Is this only a warehouse? Dave, is this only a warehouse?
So, I don't know.
Okay.
From UW Health, but I believe that's.
Okay. And
It's not a retail pharmacy. It provides the pharmacy services to support all UW Health.
Yeah, and then they fill things from there, you know, so there are people working there, doing things
But-
other
but
than
the-
warehousing.
but customers don't come in
But there are no customers here.
okay, any more discussion or questions or?
Well, so why do we need 3 signs?
Well, you've got an entry for the trucks, you've got an entry for visitors, that's the one, the driveway entrance plus the one on the building. But they're all within and that's what they want. There's a lot of buildings over there, a lot of signage. I've seen a lot of other buildings with much larger signage.
You are right.
In that area. Area's big sign.
I have to say to Dennis that this is way more typical than atypical if we don't put it on the building. So I would move approval as a minor SIP modification.
All right, so I need a second now.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion, questions? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? So the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
They all look
Now you can get your signs made. So,
Ever since that Cromrie sign was approved, I've been beaten.
The wording on the Cromrie sign has changed since you last talked about it.
Yes, I saw that one.
So from your voice, your words
I
to
was right
God's
for
ears,
a
someone
right
changed
year.
it?
Wait a minute, it's been the same all summer.
But-
He came
No, it
and
changed right at the end of the school year.
Yeah, but now it's been the same way all summer.
But he might have said that.
well, we should let them know there are people watching them.
Indeed.
I gotta get out more often.
Okay.
Those of us that drive by it a million times.
Okay, well, this is good, guys. All right, we are next to the next item on the agenda is design review for retaining wall for the Future Foam 2210 Parkview Road. Anybody from Future Foam here? Okay, so, and Eileen,
Mark reviewed this one. His suggestion was perhaps using, he understands that concrete wall is needed, but perhaps there could be a stamped concrete. I haven't directly communicated with the applicant. It is the industrial park, so there are some other large ones.
I
You want to
see
make sure it's
means with the
outside.
design on it.
Yeah, yeah, stamped.
Other than the forms here, like
Yeah,
he shows
other than
on
the
this.
form.
So it looks like stone.
You need to make sure it's out of the right of way. I think that's one of the things that we would be.
Yeah, and there have been some emails going around with our engineering staff and our city forester about protecting trees during construction. And I added one sentence to Mark's staff recommendation, and I realized there was a typo in it. It should have said, in addition, approval should be contingent on resolution of recommendations, rather than additional. And part of that would also encompass the issue that they're trying to work out related to tree protection.
okay. Yeah, I have two comments here. One is that it's right next to Wisconsin Crop Innovation Center. So I think it would be good that it should look good, and I actually like Mark's suggestion that it should be a stamped concrete. So I think that's what I think it should be a good wall. So let's make sure that we communicate this to these folks.
Is stamped the same as blocks?
No.
No?
It's got a design that's.
But this is on.
Basically, what you're doing is you're putting a form liner inside the concrete form.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, it's a form liner, it's not a stamping.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like
this-
on the bridges.
Just make it look good. So that's all there is to it.
So it looks way better than those noise walls they put on the Beltline, right?
Oh.
Where's the retaining wall? On which side of the property?
And it's on the
East side, right?
East side. Oh, okay.
Because it's adjacent to the street.
Adjacent to Parview Road.
Oh, it's adjacent to Parview Road, okay.
I think it is.
It's not then, it's not in between the Craft Innovation Center then?
I think it's right on Parview.
Oh, it's on the right on the
Yeah,
Parview,
I think it's right
okay.
there, because right now it's a
Okay.
wooden one and it's
Okay.
falling down.
Okay.
So
2220
they have one
Okay.
on the northern property line, and
Okay.
this would be along the
Okay,
property line.
yeah, so it's actually along the road, so.
Okay, can I move approval?
Yes.
Move approval subject to the wall being placed entirely on private property, installation of perennial plantings extending along the base of the wall according to the staff approval, engineering staff approval, and that it be a stamped concrete wall.
Okay, need a second. All right, any questions or any more further discussion? If no more questions, then I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion for the future phone retaining wall is passed. So next one is design review for Lucigen Corporation Generator 3001 Parliamentary Street. All right, here we are.
You were waiting.
Sorry for keep you that long waiting, so.
No problem. My name is Ray Banzulis from Lucigen, representing Lucigen.
And you guys did a great job in winning that one of the Excellence Award.
Oh, yes,
and-
thank you. Export
Yes.
Awards, yes.
Yes,
Oh.
yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
we've been sending stuff out the door at record pace, so we're very happy about that.
For 4 years, average of 4 years, that is really amazing, and sales are about $18 million now. That's
Wow.
impressive, so.
And this generator would be placed on the property to the north, and it's replacing an existing generator that's right next to your building, correct?
Replaces an existing one, right? Our inventory storage needs have increased, and so we've recently added a lot of refrigerated storage space to accommodate the inventory demand. And the legacy backup generator that we had was no longer adequate to provide the coverage that we needed.
And we do have a provision in the zoning ordinance that requires, or has a maximum of 65 decibels at the lot line, and I think I'd gotten some information from the CEO about the generator.
It falls in that range. It has noise protection. It's a Kohler unit that has that level of protection.
And I know typically what we've seen when generators have been placed in commercial settings like this, they're not really able to have landscaping or screening, but I was just wondering if there was anything that could go on that eastern property line.
Again,
Yeah,
next to all those...
next to the condos.
Condos, yeah.
Just to see if there was some way, wouldn't even have to necessarily be close to the generator, but just something to screen it from that side.
There are trees.
There are existing
trees, yeah.
Immediately adjacent. And so that was why we did not consider that in the original plan.
So it will be less than 65 decibels then?
That would be
Yes.
the requirement at the lot.
So the only thing I was confused about is, your property is 2905 Parmenter Street. 3001 Parmenter Street, you actually own that?
No, it's we lease, and the same owners have our lot in the...
And 3001 Parmenter Street that's all that same development group?
Yes.
And they'll-
So right now, it's kind of a vacant parcel.
It is.
So
They-
presumably, this will be split off if there's any development.
Or there's the cross easement that is used as, they'll be bringing in a proposal at some point to redevelop that site, and then they would have to incorporate this into their
Okay.
redevelopment site. And there is an agreement that they're working out to make sure it runs with the property. I mean, they're wonderful tenants, and they want to
Right.
do everything they can to.
I mean, the only condition I would ever imagine putting on an approval like this is, would we want, at some point in time, to actually have someone go, if neighbors complain, have someone go out and measure the decibels at the property line? Or is that inherent in the approval that if it exceeds it, then we have, I mean, I hate for them,
Right.
how do you mitigate the sound? Is it with trees?
It would be
More
with some
trees?
type of softening.
But it already...
It already has trees.
noise protection as part of the design of the
Right.
of the
And that's
backup
good, I
generator.
think. The newer ones, I think.
The newer ones are required.
Yeah.
But I think it is important that that should be there. I can see that for a technology company here, your light goes out for a few seconds or minutes, and considering all the, molecular biology supplies you have, your last is tremendous, and so it is not going to be used very often. It may not be used for years.
Right.
And, like in this whole year, it may have been used for a couple of minutes, right?
Right. We do have it does require occasional, basically, exercise to keep the parts moving. The current generator that's in place runs about 15 to 20 minutes once a week, and that's during business hours, usually between 10 and 10:30 in the morning on a weekday, and we haven't received any.
You've never received any complaints?
Yeah.
Right?
Would you be fine with a condition that said that if the neighbors complain, that city staff can investigate and recommend mitigation efforts?
Sure. Oh, yes.
Okay, so that's your motion?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second? Okay.
Second?
All right. So any more discussion on this one? And I think, I'm sure this Lucian will make sure that it is the quietest thing which they can find. So.
Oh, yeah, nobody's going to even notice that
Yes,
there.
yes. Quieter than what you had. Okay, if there is no more discussion, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? So the motion for the Lucian to have a new generator is passed. So the next one is really nice one. This is design review for Starbucks Community Art Initiative 2620 Allen Boulevard. So this looks really neat. So who's going to, Abby?
Yeah, this is the, you'll recall that the building that was constructed out there on Allen Boulevard was not exactly as approved, and the Plan Commission required the developer Alliance to put in 2 windows, but because of what happened with the interior layout, they were windows that would open up to a storage room and to a bathroom. So they had to put the white screens behind the windows, and this committee recommended referral to the Arts Committee for some creative way to enhance the white screens, essentially. And as we talked about printing something on a white screen with our Public Arts Committee, and in particular, we have an art conservator who's on our committee who has a lot of expertise about longevity of different types of materials. They ultimately recommended that we would fabricate any design onto vinyl that would be affixed right onto the window, similar to like a vehicle wrap or a commercial window display. So this is all funded by the developer. The cost is about $5,400 because we included 2 prize awards for the selected artist, $1,500 each window. And we put out an RFP. We got 115 submittals, which we were just totally
They were cool.
blown away by. It was really, really fun to review them, to review all of them and see the different designs that were submitted. And they were from people all over Dane County, but the really neat thing is that a teacher who's also a children's book illustrator at Madison College, she found out about the project and she assigned it to her class. So there were about 20 graphic design and illustration students who submitted designs. And the woman whose design ended up being selected is one of those students, and Starbucks actually wanted her design on both windows. So she got the benefit of receiving both of the prize awards. She was just thrilled about. And now she's working with Starbucks to come up with, the final image and make sure that everything is exactly as they want it. And once we have that, we're going to go ahead and get the vinyl printed if the design is approved by the committee.
Move approval.
All right, need a second.
Second.
Okay,
That's
yes,
really cool.
and discussion.
Do you remember that these were going to be rear lit?
We talked about whether they should be lit, and that right now is not part of the budget.
I think that's fine.
And I do think this is going to start a trend, though, because you think about all the Starbucks that have this issue and all the excitement and interest this has generated. I predict that more Starbucks and more having this type of thing, because, that many entries, that cool of a process. We'll see more.
No, it looks good.
We want to put
Yes, David.
we want to put a plaque on it talking about the project because
That's neat.
this really wasn't. I mean, this was an issue with the development company, Alliance Development, and they've totally funded the project and they've been very good to work with, throughout the process. But Starbucks corporate office has been really good to work with as well, and so we'd like to put a little plaque or something up to explain the project and name the artist. Well,
This goes on the outside of the window?
Well, we're figuring that out right now. We have cost estimates for whether it would be adhered on the inside or the outside. The company that we've gotten the cost estimate from is called Red Tail Wraps, and they said that it should last for about 7 years without fading, regardless of whether it's on the inside or the outside. They are recommending that the vinyl be fabricated with these tiny little pinprick holes in it so that it will let light through. But there's not much light that's coming through the screens now.
But there's walls right behind it, right?
No, there's a screen behind it. There's a screen behind the window. They're actual functional windows, but they're just screened.
Because
cool.
of what was behind there that they didn't want everybody to see.
Right, their storage area.
Yeah.
It's been a nice process.
The bathroom, I actually haven't been in there, but I'm guessing that the bathroom has to have something more substantial behind that window, but I don't know what it is. So we would need to investigate that a little bit.
I'll go in tomorrow morning. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, do some homework.
Just kidding.
Okay, so we had a motion, right, and a second. Any more questions? If there's no more questions or discussion, I call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. Now we on to the last item here, 2018 Planning Department Capital and Operating Budget.
I handed out
Yes.
one worksheet, which wasn't included in the packet. This is a recommendation from the Middleton Sustainability Committee, which I staff currently for a part-time position. It's a personnel request, 0.5 FTE position, the cost of which would be around $30,000 after benefits are included. We looked at similar positions in Fitchburg and Monona when we costed this out. Monona has a full-time sustainability person. Fitchburg has a 20-hour person who's currently working 30 hours a week, in addition to an environmental engineer position. So when we look at how we rank compared to other communities as far as sustainability staffing, we're pretty low. We know that the residents of Middleton want the city of Middleton to be a leader in addressing climate change, as evidenced by the referendum question that was on the ballot last year. And, frankly, it's just, we've done a lot of the low-hanging fruit items with energy efficiency, and even we've got some renewable energy in our portfolio as well now, but there is a lot more that we could be doing if we had some additional staffing capacity. As far as the general planning department operating budget goes, we found that our revenue estimates for 2017 are coming in lower than budgeted. We were, for a few years in a row, we were higher than we had budgeted, and so we increased our estimates, and then as it turned out in 2017, this is year that we came in a little bit lower. So you can see that we are requesting a decision item to reduce our revenue estimates for 2018 by about $12,000. And on the capital budget side, we have mostly TIF funded capital budget requests, with the exception of potential legal fees associated with the zoning ordinance rewrite. So as we finalize the comprehensive plan, we're looking to make some modifications to the zoning code next year. We might be able to negotiate that as part of our retainer, because our contract with our city attorney is up after the end of this year, but we wanted to be conservative and just assume that there might be up to $10,000 in capital costs there for legal fees. And there are 2 additional projects that are in the Public Works Department budget that are being considered for TIF funding, and that's University Avenue Phase 2. So that's $1 million from Cayuga Court to Park Street, as well as North High Point Road, which was included in the TIF project plan as a TIF eligible project. Right now, it's being shown in the Public Works Department budget as a general capital budget request item, but that's something that we've talked about possibly being considered for TIF funding.
I like this, the TIF funding for the University Avenue and North High Point Road. I think those are really 2 good items. We need those roads to be fixed, and earlier the better. So I think those 2 are really good. And about the zoning, so what is, you expect big changes in the zoning ordinance, or why do we?
We want to make sure that we do a couple things. One is to keep up with state law, changing state law and case law, and we want to make sure that we've incorporated sustainability features. Like Dennis was mentioning back in the early 80s. There's not much I can say about that. The zoning ordinance was redone to reduce the size of the lot requirements for R1. What happened, though, in the developments that happened, from what I can tell shortly after that, they actually still got bigger. So it's looking at what we can do to incorporate sustainability into the zoning ordinance, and that type of change.
Part of it will also likely, although this isn't embedded in the zoning code, but it will also be looking at parking as an issue. And we've already developed, you mentioned it in one of the topics earlier, but we have already developed a table to show like how we compare for parking minimums.
Oh, you have?
To other cities. We have
that's
that.
good. That's good.
So we want to look at parking, lot sizes, minimum standards. I think Mark Opitz has been keeping a marked up copy of a zoning ordinance for as long as I've been here, so about 10 years. So we have some modifications we need to make. It's not going to be a complete overhaul, but.
Okay. Any discussion, folks? Yes.
So the $3.5 million for the University and Parmenter intersection, that includes taking some land?
Yeah, we included in there as an estimate $2 million for property acquisition and relocation. We don't know what the costs are going to be for property acquisition and relocation because the city has not yet made a decision which side of the intersection to pursue at this time.
But, yeah. So has a decision already been made that we need to improve the intersection by adding a turn lane?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we need to.
A dedicated turn lane. Just left on both east-west directions.
Yep.
Yeah, the crash rate at that intersection is
Yeah.
two crashes per million vehicles entering, which is a typical intersection. I think Tom Stetzer, our TIF engineer, said is about 0.7, so it's almost 3 times the goal.
And it's operating at a level of service D right now.
Yeah.
It's not going to get better without.
Abby, I should
improvements.
probably know this after all this time, but why is this in the planning stuff instead of public works?
Because of the TIF.
I think
Because of
it's
the TIF money?
because of the TIF and also because right now the primary costs here, well, over half of the costs here are related to property acquisition, and that's something that's being facilitated by the planning department.
Okay.
We've been working on that project along with our TIF engineer.
And we do coordinate with Public Works regularly to see.
So they would have some, they probably have an item like this as well with, or is
Not-
this the entire?
They have a full budget that they're requesting.
Right.
Doesn't include
And
this.
occasionally there's an overlap, but pretty much this is unique to.
We work with Public Works to determine whether it's something that they're going to request in the Public Works budget or if we should put it into ours. Because there is some overlap with the TIF projects, but for example, University Avenue Phase 2, that's almost entirely being coordinated by Public Works, even though it might be funded by TIF, so that's in theirs. Whereas this project is being coordinated by our department working with our consulting engineer.
Okay.
And so the action item is we recommend approval of this budget to Common Council.
Correct.
And the sustainability coordinator would be in the planning department.
Yes.
I'd move approval.
Need a second?
Second.
The discussion.
It's a good time to bring up my question. I'm sure there's no money to do anything, but, but now's the only time to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that is, and we just had an example again tonight of the fact that you can't see anything in this building. You can't, or this room, and it's tough. The microphone works to some extent, doesn't work. I think we're fine because the person's actually talking at us. I don't think what's filtering through always is coming, but also there's no way to see the documents. And certainly not and the people who do come and show us something, they stand right in front of the thing. So anyway, I complained to Eileen about the AV sort of aspect of this.
It's a real problem.
It is.
I've been advocating for a long time to see if we could just get a remote to turn on that projector so we don't have to stand on a chair to do it.
So
I know IT actually has a budget approved for this year.
For this year.
Dennis volunteered to work with them, and I did provide that information to our IT.
Yeah, Drew had come up with a low-cost solution to put a TV screen behind you, Dennis, and I think to put one back over here, which would help with the audience at least. I mean, it's kind of a Band-Aid solution, but at the very least, people who are sitting in the audience would be able to see
Yes, correct.
being presented.
I've presented many times to Monona, and one of the things they have is it would be hanging down from this beam,
Yeah.
2 bars, and it has 2 TV screens facing each way. So
Dennis was proposing.
one faces us, one faces us, one faces
I
them.
think that makes sense,
so they
doesn't
can
it?
see it.
I think that's what was your idea, wasn't it?
Well, that was
Something similar.
one part of it, yeah.
And Drew talked about that solution
I mean,
as well.
we
I
also,
remember.
they also need to be big.
Needs to be big.
Yeah, something needs to be bigger, because the detail, I mean, look at the documents that we always get. I don't know, I couldn't follow the discussion we were having about the plantings, because I can't even see at that scale. I
Okay,
can't
how
see
about-
And that's what we get shown, if, whatever the distance is, that we're.
Yeah, and when I go and set up the, tripod, I feel bad because there's an audience full of
Yeah.
people that want to see the same presentation, and there's no way.
And our IT guys are really good, but this room was actually designed back in '92. Well, you know what, we didn't have any of this. We didn't have computers, we didn't have,
Okay, so now we have the money.
well, there's some
We,
money.
we have some money. So would you, Dennis, work with the IT department and come up with some suggestions here?
Well, I don't want to step on anybody's
Yeah,
toes.
No, you're not stepping on any.
Be in IT's budget though, right?
It's in IT.
It is.
They already have a budget item approved to do
No.
something now, this year.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea of how much?
Oh, yeah, money is already there. I think it's
didn't even-
25,000.
I mentioned again to ask to see if they were going to put something in the budget for next year, and they said, "Oh, we've actually already got a budget item approved."
And I kind of introduced Dennis to Drew by.
What happens if they
by
don't, if they
email.
have money approved and they don't spend it, does it lapse?
The
They would
capital
have to
thing gets
ask
carried over.
to carry it
Yes.
over. Yeah.
But the thing is that we need that now. Why shouldn't we get it done?
I think, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
You're right. I don't think that thing in the sky solves the problem, though. We
Okay.
need a camera, like a overhead projector, electronic version of an overhead projector, with a camera on it, so that somebody coming up can put the drawing down.
Oh.
Otherwise, everybody's going to arrive with a thumb
flash
drive to show it. Are we going to make that a condition of application?
Well, we do require all submittals electronically, and so I think that was the idea, is that we would focus more on having a laptop plugged in here and maybe some kind of an electronic pointer option so that they would always work from the screen, because then it would connect up with
And
it.
it would be good to have a dedicated computer here, or laptop, because we just use the planning department one, which is also used by other people within the city hall and our interns, so we need something that's.
The question is, it should be large enough so that people can read. And number two, it should be that not only the city council, it should be people or the plan commission, but people on the other side should be able to see it too. And then it should be, functional, that even if somebody has or maybe have a committed computer, so.
I'll put it on our staff agenda for our meeting tomorrow
Okay.
morning.
And our IT guys
Kurt,
are
you had-
fabulous. They're just swamped.
Yeah.
You know,
I was just
they're-
going to say, whenever we're looking at a development proposal, I mean, even on my laptop, I always want to pull up the Google Earth imagery or the DCI maps to really see the site, and that's
Yep,
helpful
yep.
to look at things.
So we would need a committed computer, so. Any other discussion or? Yeah, I think, Abby, you got pretty good idea that it's needed and money's there, and the Dennis is going to work with IT folks, or at least talk to them, and Eileen is going to introduce.
Well, like you said, he didn't want to step on anybody's toes, though, because they are really, they're very good, and but he made the offer, and if we could get them together, that would.
Yeah, I just sent him a note saying that if they were interested.
In my office.
I understand they were going to do it, so if they wanted my expertise, which I had some planning
Yeah.
facilities and so forth.
Dennis will bring some treats, and they will have coffee together, have brainstorm session, and things will get rolling.
Yeah, that is funny.
Okay, I don't think we had any motion to approve the.
We did.
We did?
Motion and second.
Okay, all right, so how about any more discussion? If there's no more discussion, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passed. They need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, thank you guys. You guys are simply awesome. Great job.